Folks, hello and
That's what we
welcome
should call
to Dungeons, Dragons, and Discourse. Glenn, however, would like to call us the Sandbox Show. That makes me think of kitty litter.
I
Maybe
know you were
effort.
going to say that.
Yeah. Hey, we don't clump. That could be our standard line. In any case, with
The
me,
sandbox, we don't clump.
yeah, we don't clump. All right, this side of the screen where I'm at is Glenn House from Old Man Grognard. And down
That
below
is
us,
Eric Tenkar.
guilty. Down below us, not because he's lesser than us, but only because he logged in third. Down below us is Aaron the Pedantic. You've probably, if you follow this show, you might have seen Aaron doing an interview with myself and Bad Mike from North Texas, which was a lot of fun to do. So, Aaron, thank you for joining us, man.
My pleasure, man.
And I'm looking, and you actually have, dare I say, a professional setup behind you.
Loosely, this is a kitchen table
like
setup that I try to make look as presentable as possible. But I had some posters up, but I had to take them down for something I had to do for other stuff. But
Well, I'm glad you did. I got really kind of irked seeing those DCC posters.
Oh, why?
Because I don't like DCC.
I don't like this discussion.
It reeks of 3.5 D&D.
Well, it is certainly built on a chassis of 3.5. That
I know. That's the bone I have to pick with Goodman.
Well,
I know you published in the day. Did you have to follow through on the 3.5?
It was Goodman's way of giving a big FU to Wizards of the Coast, in my opinion. I have no inside knowledge. But when Goodman published the 4E magazine, was it Play On or some shite like that? And he was the first and only one to really push and say how great the game system license is before realizing how shitty it was. And then he went on and designed his own game based upon the 3E SRD. So
but I played enough 3 and 3.5 to just not like it anymore.
No.
And so I always say if you want to play third edition, third 5 done right, you play Castles and Crusades.
Okay, I'll accept that. It was what brought me into what became the OSR. Aaron, I apparently you brought some of your friends with you. Legion of Myth.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk.
Do we want Aaron now or later? Yeah, Legion. I'm guessing that you are a follower of Aaron, and therefore it's up to you to mock him. We don't mock him. He did a great job with us. He's a friend of the show, so we mock ourselves. So it just isn't time to mock Aaron. But if you want to in the background, right? John Miller, Glenn is right about DCC. More 3E than OSR.
You know what I call it, right? It's D&D for pencil push. It's D&D for pencil pushers.
It works great for convention play, and the only times I've played as a player has been at conventions. But I've run it for a campaign, and the campaign lasted like 4 sessions. But the problem became that my spellcasters threw in the towel. They couldn't deal with the randomness of the spells.
I don't blame them. Well, I've got other bones to pick besides the 3.5 thing with DCC, but I just don't want to go into it right now because
that's okay. I think the adventures, the modules are extremely well done, great for one shots, and I can convert them on the fly to.
It's a beautiful, it's a nice system, but it's just not.
I'm not saying the system is nice. I'm just saying that the adventures for it are great for one shots and such. They're very imaginative, very well done. But if you don't like the system and you play OSR, you just strip out the system and plug in OSR.
Castles and Crusades. You strip down the system.
And you got Glenn and I. We're like the old grogs in the OSR, but the reality is, Aaron is what this community, this movement is going.
He is the new hope for us, the young hope for us. Aaron, please. Rise our boats.
It is serious. I mean, like, you know, I have people go, why do we need new players in the OSR? Because, you know, the older you get, the more health issues you get. It's like, oh, gee, before 2020, I was a type 2 diabetic. After 2020, we can add in congestive heart failure and disabling sciatica and a few other issues. Yeah, you know what? I won't live forever. Glenn won't live forever. Aaron, you won't live forever, but odds are you're going to live longer than we are.
You're not talking about me, right?
Yes, you're closer to the starting line than we are. So you've got more of it to run.
Hopefully.
And that's what, in my personal opinion, people are like, well, how are we going to grow the OSR? Quite simply by, you know, being friendly with, making friends with, making connections with the younger generations. It isn't like get off my lawn. That get off my lawn shit is old and done, which will probably bring us up to Mr.
I made peace with ascending armor class. If that doesn't tell you what an old dog can learn.
Okay.
Listen,
okay.
As long as you don't want to bring weapon speed into the conversation, Glenn.
Thank you. No, I won't.
All right, because I swear to God, I might have to walk out my back door in the Poconos and take a quick trip out there to Oklahoma and give you a beatdown, because weapon speed and even spell interruption kind of hits my.
Yeah. Well. Could you take a side trip to Ann Arbor and slap Brian around too? He uses it.
Can't do it. Can't.
Did a live play of 2E with him and my buddies on Thaco's Hammer. I was like, what do you mean you're using weapon speed? Give me a break. Come on.
I need armor versus AC adjustment. Come on. Your weapon type. Come on.
I like that stuff.
You do?
Yeah. I mean, but, you know, I'm somebody who started with a lot more simple things and went back, and I was like, wow, that actually adds a little bit of depth that I kind of felt was missing in a way. It does take, it doesn't take really that much longer. You just got to write it on your sheet, you know, but yeah.
Well, see, my problem with the armor versus weapon type adjustment was that it really only came into play when you were fighting creatures. Mostly it would be human or demi-humans, because when it came to orcs and goblins and gnolls and kobolds, they had an AC, but never really said what they were wearing.
Mm-hmm.
So then it became.
Well, by the way, Woodard is right. It is more 3X than DCC. Well, yeah, because they fixed it. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I see the comments, you know. So
I know. By the way,
that's a good point, though.
My opinion of Castles and Crusades is, if there is a Rosetta Stone for you to go from old school systems, including the original systems or the retro clones, and go to 3rd edition, the Rosetta Stone is Castles and Crusades. You can convert stuff through that prism, and it works fine. If you're converting within the OSR, my opinion, Swords and Wizardry becomes that Rosetta Stone, because it seems to be a base that everything reaches from, probably because it's built upon white box, and therefore the other original systems were built upon white box. So by going back to the roots, you can then build out from it. Long ass story. Ignore me. I'm going to go through the comments and put them up on the screen, because my God, we got a very verbose audience tonight, and I'm not.
We got at least one guy who said, "Isn't Eric going to talk about Thaco the Clown?"
Well, were you listening into our pregame as we were like getting ready for the show, and we're like, well, things we got to cover, and here I will throw myself upon the mercy of the crowd. I knew nothing of Thaco the Clown until earlier today when I listened to Joe Block, the Greyhawk Grognard's episode dealing with it, and I got news for you. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I drove up to the Poconos I listened to Joe. Joe, nothing personal about this, but had my phone in my hand. It came up. I was like, this sounds interesting. I hit play and I used the bathroom. And when I finished using the bathroom, I hit pause and went out and I walked the dog so the dog could use the bathroom. I haven't gotten back to it, but it was like they got Thaco the Clown to apparently give a big FU to the OSR. So I thought that our emotionally disturbed gamer, Garibay,
J. Scott Garibay,
our
he did
emotionally
his own.
disturbed gamer.
He did his own take on that too, Reese.
Oh, so I didn't know. I just knew about him.
Yeah, he put that up.
9 million dollars on Twitch is relevant.
We'll get to that.
I know.
But I as far as Thaco the Clown goes, he gave me a different. The only thing good that he did was give me a different perspective. It's not Thaco the gatekeeping clown. It's just Thaco the Clown. And I came to the conclusion the whole thing's a tempest in a teapot.
Well, no,
you know,
I don't think so, because if it was Thaco the gatekeeping clown, then it would be, hey, we're making this joke and it's not even going to be an inside joke. We're going to come out and just say it. No, instead, it's we're going to hide this joke and only the people we're directing it at are going to understand it. So it means that the recent 5e players are going to see this and they're going to go, oh, what an interesting name for a clown, Thaco. Haha, it's like Bozo the Clown, Thaco the Clown. Makes a lot of sense. And they're not They're not going, wait a second. Thaco, that's AD&D. That son of a bitch, these motherfuckers are mocking me and the games that I play. So that to me is why it's even more insulting, is that they didn't even spell out why it is being named as it is, because they figured only the people it's being directed at would figure it out.
Well, my take on it is, I think it's a lot of, I'm not offended by it. It doesn't bother me because I know TSR and WotC now has a long history of like making fun of people in their game or puns or things like that. So it was only a matter of time, I think.
Oh, you mean like Greyhawk Castle and the
he brought that up, right?
Yes, that was a big fuck you to Gary and all the old timers. It wasn't done as a fun little joke, ha ha ha, he. That was, hey, how can we give a fuck you to Gary Gygax and a bunch of the other old timers? I know, let's mock something that's important to them. I don't think Thaco's that important, personally.
Yeah,
but it is a definition of late AD&D or second edition.
Sometimes D&D. I feel like the newer edition players are more concerned with it than actually we are. So use Thaco, don't use Thaco. We don't. Hey, folks, you new folks, we don't really care if you don't understand it. We do.
Listen, I used a combat wheel. For me, that was.
There was first edition DMG, page 75.
Oh no! I'm talking about
the charts.
There was a combat wheel in an issue of the Dragon, and I cut it out and I put it on cardboard, and then I didn't have lamination because this was back in the 80s, but instead I had like a silicone spray. Man, this thing was set up. That was great. That to me was calculus for AD&D. Thaco meant nothing to me when I came up. I think I still stuck with my combat wheel. And Aaron's looking at me like I grew a third eye because I put together a combat wheel with, a cereal box and a cutout from Dragon magazine. We did that back in the day and we were happy.
I'm just lamenting my childhood in comparison to yours because that sounds awesome.
The awful green.
Listen to us in despair.
I played a lot. Like Kings and Things was a game that West End Games put out, but before they put it out, it was in Dragon magazines, a Tom Wan game, and I actually cut out all the damn pieces. And here's a problem: when you cut out pieces that are cardboard from a magazine, and you try to play outdoors on a picnic table, it doesn't handle the wind very well.
Aaron, I'll let you in on a little secret. I didn't start playing role-playing games until I was 22, so I missed all that in my teens.
There you go.
Anyway, what's your take on this clown guy?
Well, as far as my take goes, first off, I thought it was pretty funny. Like I thought it was not in a like, hey, let's rub stuff in on people kind of thing, but just in a, I thought it was kind of clever. When it came to things I appreciate in literature, I always liked allegorical poems and stories and stuff like that. And so a personification character like this was amusing to me, and I thought it was kind of clever. I think it's kind of mean spirited in a way. Especially, I think the thing that gets me the most about that is whenever you think about it, the separation from descending and ascending is kind of one of the things that for a lot of people marks third edition. And so it kind of felt like maybe that was, maybe not a good thing to just be like, here's this old thing that nobody understands, and it's real grumpy and hates people. And it's the old company, this is TSR. And then, Wizards of the Coast, it's like, hey, we got ascending armor class. Everybody understands that. Everybody appreciates that. It's good to you. All that kind of stuff. As far as, people being upset about it, if people are upset, I get it. I don't think it's worth being that upset over. I think that it's maybe something that, if people want to consider whether or not they want to buy their stuff, that's up to them. I don't really care about that. My big thing is there were some people in my channel that were suggesting turning it into like a positive, or doing a positive symbol of the OSR instead of having the negative one, I guess. And I think that's a cool idea. Maybe not necessarily using the clown itself. Actually you wouldn't want to, because it's probably copyrighted, copyright, trademark, that kind of thing. But maybe doing something else that represents what's awesome about old school would be a cool thing to do. Because a lot of times whenever I was off in the 5e land, really it was everybody talking bad about the other side, no matter what. It's not really the positives as much. It's usually the negatives.
Right.
And it's really kind of hard to sell that to people, unless they're already frustrated. If you're trying to sell the positive, then that's how you win people. And so whenever people started telling me, hey, if you want really great exploration, like if you look at the way that they handled things in Basic Expert and stuff like that, they actually tracked movement, and a lot of choices matter that a lot of people just kind of sweep under the rug when it comes to newer school stuff. And that made me want to look into it, and here I am. So
well, I'm glad you're with us.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Well,
I think, frankly, I think that here's the thing with the OSR. I think it was an easier sell when it was 4th edition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because 4th edition stunk to high heaven. When 5th came out, it was like better than sliced bread, and people were looking at the OSR. Well, what do we need these guys for now? And so that's what we're dealing with, basically. The long-awaited backlash, I guess.
But Glenn, that means that you are agreeing with somebody who said that playing OSR games is a waste of time because you're not going to have an influence on society. By the way, gaming has no influence on society.
I said that's my take on it. That didn't mean I agreed with it.
Oh, okay. Listen.
Devil's advocate, I know.
Devil's advocate, I understand it. I think 5e is a much better system than 4e. And I'm never going to say that AD&D 1e as written was a great system, because it wasn't. Okay, we took it as gamers, and we were like, we didn't call house ruling, but I'm dropping weapon speeds. I am fixing surprise because it makes no sense. Oh, segments, spell interruption, spells, then missiles, then mate. Oh my fucking god!
Oh my god! My Thursday game, we're playing Rule Cyclopedia D&D. Matt is a stickler for that. I hate it.
But here's the thing, okay? When you look at a lot of OSR games did away with the same things for the most part that we quote house ruled back in the day for
Well, yeah.
games that weren't necessarily well written. The first true OSR game, Osric, was a rewrite of 1E to make it
Yes.
accessible to people who like
Didn't
weren't
have
from
the
the
books.
generation that Gygax was a deity, and therefore you learn to read Gygaxian prose. Did it impress my teachers in junior high school when I could pull out words that nobody else could? Sure. It also labeled you as the jackass that knows words that nobody else does. Why? Because you played AD&D. Not necessarily the right reason for it. So old school gaming today is more accessible as an entry point for others, but 5e
Yes.
as an entry point has such a huge market and such a huge player base. It's much easier to bring somebody into a 5e group because it literally is part of the nerd. Well, I guess it isn't even nerd culture anymore. It's part of that alternate culture, that gaming culture, that culture that overlaps with people play fantasy football. All this stuff it overlaps with, and that's great too because you know what? As long as you're in the hobby, you can explore the rest of the hobby, and you got to get into the
That's
hobby
right.
when that rising tide lifts all ships. Without that tide, no ships get lifted, and if we were still having 4E as the alternative to the OSR would have a larger share of a much smaller market. I think the actual share they have now as a marketable entity is larger than it was when they were the option to 4E. They were the alternative. Now the OSR is like, oh, and I like 5E. Maybe I can play something that the old timers, those old geeks used to play. Maybe I can experiment with that, and that's fine. Again, not everybody has to like everything the same, and 5e is well written. I will never say it's not. It's just the amount of rules that I would need to learn to run the game is more than I will ever again in my life need or want to learn to run the game. I did that for 1e. I am never going to go through that again. If I was 13 now and 5e was the big thing out there, I'd be happy to learn it, and I'd probably learn all the tweaks. That would be my generation's game. But I was also somebody who played everything. I played Rollmaster, and I ran Rollmaster. I ran MERP. I ran Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I wrote the Space Ace and Time Master and Chill and Call of Cthulhu and you name it, we would run it. So it's not like there's a zero sum game and you can only play one game. You can only support one game. Support whatever you enjoy. I know players that play 5e, and I know players that the same players play Swords and Wizardry. It's more about the people you're playing with, I think, than the system. But who am I talking to? I'm talking to the converted down below me who had played 5e and has come, you came to the dark side, right? Or is it as dark as you thought it was going to be? I mean, I'm not talking about the personalities. We're all kind of grim and depressing.
Well, yeah. He is our future right there.
Well, but you know, in all honesty, if you just left it in our hands, it's going to stagnate and it's going to literally wither on a vine. And I want players like Aaron. I want players like my niece, who's going to turn 11, who thought when I wrote Swords and Wizardry Light 5 years ago that I wrote it for her. When she grabbed it out of my hands and held it up, and she was in kindergarten, she's like, "Uncle, this is D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, in 4 pages. Not it's an RPG. Not this is Swords and Wizardry. This is D&D. This is Kleenex. This is Xerox. This is D&D. It's in 4 pages. You can teach me to read 4 pages, and then I can play. And
Well,
that is the secret. Not to the OSR. That's the secret to RPGs. The next generation, the youth. That's the secret to keeping this flame going.
my grandson Gage is enamored of 5e. He likes 5e. He runs 5e, but he started with me at 11 years old playing Rule Cyclopedia D&D. So I got him off right because he's comfortable with the old school too. And that's the way people should be. Play
Right.
what you want, but play what you're comfortable with, I guess.
Again, it's not zero sum. If it was zero sum, likely Aaron would never have gotten into the OSR because he'd be like, "Oh, I gotta leave behind something." I'm assuming for you it was an experiment. It's like, "Oh, I could give this a shot." I don't think you did. Did you go into the OSR saying, "I'm never gonna play 5e again. It's verboten. It's evil."
No,
I'm
nothing
leaving
like
the
that.
island.
Only if you're J. Scott Jagirabe.
Well,
I have this feeling I'm going to show up at North Texas RPG Con next year, and he's going to be there with a picket sign.
we've already had one con where they were trying to do a protest. I don't
get out of the OSR. He's walking back and forth in front of the hotel.
That'd be a big trip for him. It'd be a big trip.
Well, here's the thing with Garibay, and this is the part where, for me, the argument falls. If you don't support 5e, you are taking money out of the hands of creators of 5e.
And if you don't support the clones or anything, you're taking money out of the people who publish them.
Well, and that's just it. But your dollars, as they affect any third-party publisher, any independent publisher, your dollar has more of an impact with these publishers than it's going to have on somebody the size of the Coast. They're not going to notice whether you're $25.
Hasbro don't care.
No, they're not going to notice that. But you know what? If you put that money for Mazes and Pearls, which, well, actually it's free, but if it wasn't free, actually maybe it's second edition.
Frog God.
Or Frog God. Or Monkey Blood Games. You
Northwind Adventures. Yeah.
You're going to support an actual individual or a small group of people. Your money goes further in that support than it does for some corporate entity. That's just how life works. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't support the corporate entity, but you shouldn't say, "Oh, we got to support them because you got to put money in the hands of Hasbro because that feeds. If you don't, you're going to kill babies, and kobolds and goblins are going to starve to death because they're not being properly fed by their overlords." Just play the games that you enjoy. And again, 5e is not for me, but I don't begrudge people who play it. I think it's awesome for them.
I looked at some of his other videos, and it's like he's got this whole series about no gamer left behind. He wants to rescue all us old OSR guys who are what he called MIA.
Oh,
and he compared it to getting out of Afghanistan. It's like, well, no, wait a minute, you're going a little too far.
Dude, it's gonna be my
first time I saw his first video. I think I broke the speed of light getting my middle finger up. I couldn't do it fast enough. I was outraged.
He's a true believer, Glenn. He's a true believer.
I'm also starting to think he's a troll.
Well, Glenn, you remember when we were youths? What did Marvel call their fans? Right, the true believers. And
That's
anything
right.
that Marvel put out was awesome, and you were hoping to get your Marvel No Prize, which was literally just a mention in a letter column. You got mentioned, therefore, here's your Marvel No Prize. That's about all you're going to get from Wizards of the Coast. Now, if you want to get recognition from a company that's smaller, you had a great, you used their adventure and it was great. Maybe it's a 5e adventure from a third-party publisher, and you ran it and you comment on social media. Guess what? Good chance you're going to get feedback from that company, because you're going to be noticed. But if you do that for Wizards of the Coast, I don't know if you can hear the crickets behind me from the from the door outside up here in the Poconos. I got
I hear
crickets.
crickets from the people who are commenting.
You're gonna hear that's all you're gonna get. All right, because you literally get lost in a crowd, and that is something that I think isn't being discussed. When you play old school games or older games or independent games, whatever. If you're playing Dungeon World or one of those, which I don't play, but people have fun, or Fate, guess what? You're supporting gaming, and you're more likely to be supporting a creator real close to the whole process than supporting Wizards of the Coast, where you're just another speck, another fly. If you really want to have an impact as a gamer, support third party. Again, it could be a third party 5e publisher.
That's right.
But you're going to have more of an impact, and your opinions are going to have more influence than anything that you're going to do on some random 5e survey. I fill out the random 5e surveys. I don't play 5e. You want me having an influence in your game?
What?
Sorry, I'm ranting and rambling. I'm on my second beer. I got to apologize.
Aaron and I are just enraptured.
I think Aaron is just stunned. He's like, wow. I saw sober Tenkar at the con. It was much easier to deal with.
You saw sober me, and I was harder to deal with. So,
well,
I firmly believe that the whole you play what you want to play, and the tide lifts all boats, and all that stuff. And 5e has lifted a lot of boats. Unfortunately, we're afraid that the new people who play are just going to stay on that boat and not try the other stuff.
And that's fine. I mean, listen, I knew people when I played AD&D that would never venture into another system, and you mentioned it in college, and it's like, what? Oh, you can't play RuneQuest. RuneQuest. That's not real gaming. It's either AD&D or what about basic D&D? Oh, basic D&D is for babies and children. That's why
I've heard that one.
That's why. Listen, I believe that through like a couple until I was like, I don't know, 23, 24, and I went, oh wow, the rules encyclopedia.
You didn't tell Aaron why we really have him on here, so we can get some cred with the younger people, right?
I was
I'm just kidding.
If we were going to do the cred, we'd have to have Aaron on with Ben Barsh, so we can have the best hair in the OSR, and then have the guy with probably the largest YouTube channel that's generally active in the OSR. And here's the thing that, again, I'm 54. I know
I'm 64.
We're going to be aging out. We don't quite. I keep up with technology, but there's certain things even I can't figure out, like OBS. That's why I use StreamYard. So the new generation is not just going to be influential in gaming, but they're going to be influential in getting the word out to other gamers in a way that I will never be able to, and Glen will never be able to. Unless somebody like Aaron's like, hey, come on to my stream and address the younger crowd, and I'll probably put them to sleep. But that, sometimes the truth hurts. But
you'll be fine. Just don't delve too deep into the cop stories,
Dude, that's usually mostly on the Discord channel anyway. But yeah, nobody wants to hear late '90s in the South Bronx. God help me. But here's the secret in life that I learned as a gamer. If you don't know what to do in real life, role play it. All right, I'm sure we've all done that to some extent. If I've been in a situation where I did not know what to do, especially when I was working, if I didn't know what to do as a cop, I say, well, if I was playing a cop in Call of Cthulhu or Top Secret or some other game, what would I do? And it allowed me to get out of my profession and that vision and step into the actual real world without being so focused on, I guess, book knowledge or whatever. So I think role playing is a great tool that we don't always use. I don't know. I guess I'm talking like my wife a bit, who wanted to use role playing games in social work and could never figure out a way to do it. Probably for the
I've seen
best.
people do it.
Yeah, well, Rach doesn't run games. She just plays at cons and.
So, Aaron, you may have talked about this on your videos and live streams, but I'm going to ask the basic question: how did you get into the OSR, playing the OSR games? I shouldn't say get in the OSR. It sounds like I'm inducting him or something.
Well, my entry point was DCC. Basically, you know,
Okay.
like I said before, there were a lot of people that I saw that I, you know, had good impressions of that were saying positive things about old school play that they just felt like were kind of lacking, you know, in more modern play. Some people were reminiscing, you know, people that had kind of moved on to the new stuff because that's where the money's at and the attention's at and all that kind of stuff. And you know, DCC was a great, I think it's a great middle ground because you know it has mechanics that people can easily digest. You know, you got that ascending, you got then you also have the wacky aspect, you know, the crit tables, the spell tables and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that you can sell to people pretty well, or you can sell the funnels. You know, you're going to die like crazy, you know, on the first day that we play or whatever.
Oh yeah. Take four PCs, see how many survive.
Yeah, and then usually find some more along the way because most of them are dead.
Yeah, I don't know if I mean the funnel's a good idea, but I don't know if I could do it on a regular basis.
Oh no. I don't think
it's
it's meant to happen on a regular
basis. You kicked off a
basis.
campaign with that. I mean, I stole that idea when half my group couldn't make a session. I was like, all right, we'll use it for Swords and Wizardry. Like, what? I go, took a DCC funnel. I said, everybody roll up, you know, 4 characters. And survivors were potential henchmen for the party because they were looking for henchmen. So I didn't have to design shit. It was a great way to make my players do all the work. By the way, if you can do that, God bless you.
So after DCC, I got into, and I know some things are kind of verboten to talk about, but Lamentations of the Flame Princess, because at the time I didn't know much about Old School Essentials or any other BX clones. I didn't know much about Labyrinth Lord or anything like that. That was the one that a lot of people were talking about, and the adventure styles kind of appealed to me, you know, because it was weird and kind of dark and stuff like that. And once I got into Lamentations at that point, then I was like, oh, a lot of this stuff, apparently it's just Moldvay BX, but with some changes and things like that. And I was like, well, if I liked this, then maybe I should try like a conventional, you know, traditional fantasy game with those kind of rules. And so I got Old School Essentials, and now I'm into Swords and Wizardry, and you know, it's just keeps on adding up. You know, I'm reading Osric and loving that as well. Played AD&D 2nd edition, and I know that a lot of people are like, 2nd edition, but
I have found a few games that I like to bounce around with, like Old School Essentials and Swords and Wizardry and stuff. But I'm thinking more that if I had a game that I just wanted to stick with, it'd probably be Hyperborea.
I've been really wanting to get into that. I've been really wanting to get into
do so. I mean, when you know, I backed the new Kickstarter, so I'm waiting for my books, but I still got the 2nd edition one, the brick. And every time I run it or play it, it's just so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's on my to-do. It's just gonzo enough for my taste.
Well, and you can get the adventures for it. Like my upcoming campaign for my old gaming group, the group that broke up in '97. I say broke up. We stayed friends, but the gaming ended in '97. It's going to be using Crypts and Things, which is swords and sorcery, kind of Conan-esque, but using swords and wizardry for the base rules. And we're going to be using the Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea adventures that have been kickstarted over the years. to actually play with. Because listen, I like Ash. I like Ash a lot. It's too much for me to throw on my players who haven't played RPGs in 25 years and want to come back. I'm not going to be like, "Ka-dunk. Have fun, motherfuckers." No. I can't. I can't do it to people who have kids and like real jobs. If they were retirees like me and Glenn, maybe I would do it and just give them the finger and say, dive in and find time. But Crypts and Things for me was a good balance.
Hyperborea is a great selling point for kids who play 5e and stuff. Because I'm going to bring Gage up again. Gage, when we started, first of all, he prefers Ascending Armor class. Okay, fine. I can deal with that. And I just dropped my earbud. But he can play Descending Armor class. It doesn't bother him. And what got me was he was all into the builds. When you get into 5e, they get into the builds with all the books coming out and everything. Okay, he's playing, we're doing an Monday Eberron 5e game. So he's playing a Warforged Artificer who's that. And I said, let's play Hyperborea. He says, yeah, but I can't customize. I said, look at the classes. There's 23 classes in there. If you can't find, and he talked about multi-class. You don't need the multi-class. There is so much stuff in there that you pick the class that fits for you, and you only go up to 12 levels, but it's 12 fantastic levels.
Mm-hmm.
And he just loves it now. When we play, he really gets into it.
Now that brings a good topic to toss to Aaron's lap, because you came in with 5e, so you came in with this highly customizable type of character. Okay? And I've talked with 5e players. I own the books. I own the first couple of adventures that came out. I've read the books, not for years, but I've read them. And the amount of customization is, to me, almost overwhelming, because it reminds me of Pathfinder, where you pretty much have to decide at first level where you want to be at 20th. Because every decision that you make along the way is going to impact what you're able to do or what paths open up for you. Very much like an MMO. If you're playing one of those MMOs, like, oh, well, if you want to be a warden and you're a druid, well, then you got to do X, Y, and then Z. If you only do X, Y, and then go back and do R, you've nerfed yourself. And there's a lot of the aspect, in my eyes, to 5e when it comes to that. Whereas with the older games, the OSR games, your ability to customize is more in how you play it out and how it evolves, not how you plan it out so you end up with what you want. I don't think I've ever had a character in AD&D that, I don't know, got the items that I expected and the progression that I expected, and where they got is where they got because of how the campaign went, not what they were expecting to get.
Yeah. If you're getting what you expect in an old school game, then you should probably be suspicious. Like, why is this happening? Am I really earning this, or is this just being given to me because they know that this would be cool for my character and that I want it, which is how some people play. It's there's some serious philosophical differences in how people play that like that kind of stuff in the modern games versus people that don't, and it can be kind of frustrating at times because I do still play games with people occasionally in 5th edition, and we just have such radically different approaches to how we try to play that it can get kind of frustrating at times. Somebody starting a campaign and saying, hey, everybody starts at 3rd level, which I'm like, okay, that means you don't want to do like the kind of the grindy, well, not really grindy bits, the meat grinder bits.
Right. The dangerous parts.
Yeah, pretty much. And I can get that. I mean, from what we understand, Gary apparently did that from time to time.
Right.
But then you add on to it, and everybody gets a free feat at 1st level. And I'm going to give you this also. And it's like, and you get max HP with every level, and I'm like, you're getting to a point that there's just you're removing everything that I like about it, and emphasizing the things that I tolerate, but barely.
Well, and here's the thing, we think about this, and here we are in 2021. We're talking about 5e and how, in many ways, 5e is overpowered. All right, and then I'm going to take you back to the earlier days of gaming with First Edition when Unearthed Arcana came out. And the first thing that I noticed in Unearthed Arcana as a DM was no class was special anymore. If you wanted to play a paladin, you had a new chart. I think it was chart 5 for character generation. And paladins rolled 96 for charisma. But if they failed to get a 17, they were guaranteed to get a 17. So there was no longer the idea that, well, only the really lucky are going to be able to play certain classes. They're going to be rare. It suddenly became, well, we'll let everybody play what they want because these are new official rules, right? So you have to play with these rules. These rules are the way AD&D 1E is going to be going on. So it's been declared, so it shall be said. All hail Hydra, Gygax, or whatever. I mean,
well, wasn't Unearthed Arcana?
We were complaining about 5e doing stuff like that, and it happened back in the 80s. Yeah. We just have a better our vision looking back at it. It's like, oh no, it wasn't that bad. Oh no. Then we had 2e, which had complete handbooks for every character class, and these
wasn't
kits were broken.
What wasn't Unearthed Arcana also the first time they tried to rewrite the Bard?
No, I don't believe there's a Bard class in Unearthed Arcana. The rewrite for the Bard didn't officially happen until 2e. However, Unearthed Arcana gave us the Barbarian, who got experience points for destroying magical items, which meant that he was really the kind of character you wanted in your party, with a magic user and a cleric in it. So, I mean, real social issues are popping up. My group loved Unearthed Arcana. If you piecemealed it and said, wow, it makes an illusionist viable as a character class, okay, I'll accept that. But most of it was broken. But it is what it was Gary giving the community what the community was asking for. And when you ask for something and you get it, you probably don't appreciate it. You probably don't value it. But it was a cash grab. Everybody bought it. Everybody was dying to buy it. Now I got weapon specialization. Now I can be a thief Africa.
You hit on something else that Mr. Garibay, I watch his stuff saying you have to convert over to 5e and stuff. It's the financial aspect of it. I got these books. I don't want to give them any more money. I don't want to buy $50 adventure books.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first bone of contention when 5e came out. I says, "Are you buying the main books?" No, I'm not even buying the main books or the adventures. Everything's $50. It's like I got stuff. I don't need it.
But Glenn,
I'm poor.
Glenn, if you don't support 5e, pixies will die when the bells ring. Okay.
I'm gonna. Yeah, right. I'm gonna be like that little dwarf in Labyrinth with the little spray can, spraying the pixies. Yeah.
Get you out. But listen, that is the dirty secret of the OSR, right? Let's Osric, you can download the rules for free. Swords and Wizardry, you can download the
Basic
rules
Fantasy.
Basic Fantasy, you can download the rules for free. You can get Basic Fantasy stuff at damn near cost on Amazon. For print stuff. Labyrinth Lord, no art versions. They're free. Right? So all these games, they came out and the creators released them for free. Now that screws up the marketplace, right? I mean, especially if you're somebody who, and for some people, gaming can almost be a religion. I understand that. I don't necessarily have to respect it, but I can understand it. If you believe that you're not doing your proper tithing to the Church of 5e by purchasing books from Hasbro and products that support Hasbro. Remember, the thing was, 51% of your gaming has to be 5e. You can play other stuff.
Here's something that's funny. I watched one of his other videos. He was talking about people need to become 5e to be properly indoctrinated. I said, well, wait a minute. When I got my grandson into D&D, my wife objected vehemently because she said, I think he's a little early to be indoctrinated into. I don't think he should be indoctrinated in this. But this isn't a cult. It's a game. And she finally relented. But that kind of thinking, the indoctrination thing, doesn't need to be existing in our hobby. I'm sorry.
Well,
thoughts?
Listen, back when we were gaming, Glenn, there was a belief. My mother's aunt Norma, sister Camilla, full black habit, nun, didn't believe in Vatican II, only went to a Latin mass. She thought that my gaming material was instructions on how to cast spells. Because, you had a casting time and you had material components. She snuck into my room when I was sleeping in the air conditioner, one air-conditioned room downstairs. She snuck into my bedroom to find my D&D books and to find it. Call my parents, because they were in the Poconos, that your son is a Satan worshiper. That was the time frame back then. That was, some of us lived through it. My parents were understanding.
See, I missed all this because I wasn't into gaming at that time.
Right. My mother, God bless her, she was like, she yesed her aunt to death, and then called me up and said, "Listen, your aunt's only going to be there for another week. I know you. It's summertime." She goes, "I know your friends all want a game. Don't you have science fiction games like that Traveler thing and other stuff that you can play for the next week?" And we did. My friends understood. They humored the strange woman.
I had a friend who had relatives, who had parents and relatives like that. He switched over to Gamma World. They didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
To him after that.
It was the perception. Now, we don't have that same kind of baggage going on today.
You'd be surprised. That's why I always say, I'm in the Midwest. I'm in the Midwest. So as I say, the satanic panic dies hard in some people.
I understand it, but there's today there's other movements that try to get insidiously into our gaming hobby and to change aspects of it to purify it or make it better. And I personally think that when it comes to old school gaming proves how resilient the hobby is. It goes to prove that here we are 40 years later, and people are still playing effectively the same rules and the same games that were being played back in 1974.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm bad math. 50 years, nearly 50 years.
Burning books, destroying books. See, Aaron, all the fun you missed?
Born too late for it. God damn it. Oh, you young whippersnappers. I had to carry my gaming books uphill both ways to my friend's house.
I have my original character sheets on bark using charcoal. Yeah.
I didn't have that. I had access to a photocopy because my father worked for the phone company. So I would give him my goldenrod sheets and he would run off literally hundreds and hundreds of copies. And then I'd be like the cool kid in multiple gaming groups, because I'd be like, "Hey, you want some free character sheets? Only the front. I don't have the back. If you got equipment, you're screwed," because my father couldn't copy that. But you got the fronts, you can just fake the back. But that's what we went through. Gaming now, and this affects the old school less. But I'm gonna bring up a dangerous 4-letter word, and it doesn't begin with F. the whole woke movement, whether you're for or against it. I don't know of how many people want to have it in every aspect of their life. So when you put it into my escapism, I push back, and I see that's happening a lot more so
I will
with
push
with
back too.
5e, because 5e is the rising tide that lifts all ships. It is the
It is.
it is the culturally important version of role playing games, and has
Oh,
a movie
please.
coming out, and the $9 million raised by its Twitch channel and all these other bullshits. But in any case,
But are they giving any other product for like tiered pricing or something that's more inclusive of
sorry,
people that do not
we have a
have
social
as much
worker.
finance?
We have a social worker kicking in some ideas here. That's my wife, Rach, and she's got a good point there.
By the
If
way,
they were really,
If you're really about inclusion, financial inclusion as well.
no, listen. When it comes to Wizards of the Coast and Paizo, all right, and Paizo is now possibly unionized. It's about the money, right? They're not. These are corporations. They're not doing it for the fun of the game. You can look at people like the Trolls and Goodman and Frog God and Monkey Blood and
I'm
other
not
companies.
saying give stuff away.
I'm not saying give stuff away, but
I'm saying like
I know tiered pricing.
Have it be more expensive,
right?
Or like maybe have 3 tiers, like one for people that are like struggling, and that's your like rock bottom, and then like a middle tier for people that consider themselves like in the middle. And then an upper tier, and people, we hope that people, honor where they stand.
Nobody
be all like, oh, I'm so into you,
I'm gonna be honest with you, Rach. People don't. There are products on drive-through that are pay what you want, and people pay what they want. And I put products.
So I don't feel like paying today, and that's what happened.
Exactly.
Oh, Jesus.
Listen, we used to joke that cops are cheap fucks, but gamers are cheaper than any cop I know.
Yep. And Aaron, I think that even today, no matter what edition you're doing, I think there are certain traditions that should be passed along when they get started, and this is one of them.
Oh, the Crown Royal bag.
Everybody should get a Crown Royal bag when they first start. That should be their first dice bag.
I'm going to up that and say everybody should empty the bottle that the Crown Royal bag came in.
That's true.
To earn their position in the group before they start. 21
God.
and older. Sorry, if you're underage.
Oh, by the way, Crown Royal, if you're listening, I'm up for a sponsorship. If you want to send me to cons, that's the official dice bag of the OSR. It really is. Always said that. Anyway,
there you go.
I'm sorry.
No, Glenn, that is true.
Hopefully they sponsor you.
I mean, come on, we're being bad hosts. Let him talk. There he is. Oh, there, yeah.
Sorry, look at that, Aaron. He just told you to talk and didn't give you a topic. So talk about being. You know what? Actually, that's like being in a sandbox and being told pick a direction and go, and you're like, what's to the north?
We're thinking of renaming this podcast the Sandbox. We don't clump.
Rach likes it. Yeah, Glenn, you got one thumb up because she's holding the dog with the other thumb.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Oh
yes.
Geez.
So Aaron, where as a younger guy who's just getting in from 5e, where do you see yourself going in the OSR or gaming in general, or where do you think it's going?
You're talking about like what kind of games I'm interested in or what I'm planning to do?
You think you'd stay with the OSR or get out or stay with 5e or something like that?
So I'm currently
5 years down the road.
Yeah, I've been playing online, just pretty much strictly OSR games for some time. now, and I want to get back to in-person gaming, but the group that I used to play in person with, they're all currently playing online only because one of the players has a family member with immunocompromisation issues and they don't want to meet up in person. So I'm really about to try and raise up some new 5e people and maybe try and introduce them to the OSR. Or at least like get a pool of in-person players that I can play with, because I just miss having people at the table.
So do I. I'd come down there and play with you if I could.
Well, come to Texas.
Seriously.
Come to Texas.
I'm right. Look up. I'm right above you.
Yeah, and not for nothing. That
3 hours away.
Aspect.
Okay.
I mean, when you think about it, even convention play. Like, listen, Rach and I are not going to Game Hole. We had planned to go. I had to cancel it last week. Something came up. We got an appointment for Rach with a specialist for her vision. That if you don't take it, you don't see it for another 6 months. So we're taking it. But when you look at Game Hole is Game Hole's actual requirement for the convention is you must be vaccinated. That's fine. I'm vaccinated, but I'm not one of those vaccine mandate people. I make decisions based upon your health. My son didn't get vaccinated like a month ago, only because he said, "Oh, I think I might want to go on a cruise, and I think I need a vaccine." He's 28. You make decisions based upon your spot, your place in the health world. But Dane County, where Game Hole is being held, still has a mask mandate in for any indoor activity. So, I mean, when we went to North Texas, we weren't under a mask mandate. The hotel,
no, we weren't.
Theoretically, the hotel said you must be masked, and everybody did the, fuck you, I'm not putting a mask on because whatever. I've been vaccinated. I'm healthy. I'm not sick.
Yeah.
There was to the best of my knowledge, there was no huge pandemic hit because of that. Now, I can't. Again, I'm not going to Game Hole at this point. But if I were going to Game Hole, I don't know how comfortable I would be playing in games for 4 days and socializing for 4 days with a mask over my face the whole time. Because right now, with the three of us, I think we're getting more personal interaction because we're seeing visuals when we're talking and we're getting feedback. We're getting that virtually. If I was doing this with you all face to face and we were all wearing masks, I'd be missing out on almost all the nonverbal clues as to how you were feeling. And nonverbal clues are huge in running a game session. I mean, people forget that.
That's right.
That's
why a lot of them play with a camera on.
Right, and that's why I think it's important. Now, Aaron, you've been playing. See, like I came into VTTs, God, right before I met Rach, so 13 years ago or so. I found Fantasy Ground. Well, even before that, I found like things like Screen Monkey and other horrible pieces of shit. But Fantasy Ground was the first one that actually kind of worked. And my first sessions were all run via text. Interesting. But once we started finding things like Roll20, and back then we can integrate it with Hangouts, it changed the way games were. It allowed groups to bond. You couldn't bond with a group over text. You couldn't even really bond too well just over voice. But once you got the visuals, and the voice and the game playing and the, dare I say it, the 20 minutes of stupid stories and bullshitting before the game that everybody does, because that's how your group bonds. We got that by doing Hangouts and Roll20, which we were not getting otherwise. So for me, running a game similar to something like this with voice, video, and I don't know, a virtual chalkboard is a lot more fulfilling or a lot more satisfying than running with mass at a convention. I mean, that's I'm 54 and I'm an old fogey. you're the younger generation. I mean, how do you feel about those requirements at a convention?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not big on gaming at conventions anyway.
Okay.
Mostly just because of the fact that you don't really have a lot of control over who you're playing with and all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of
No, you don't.
whoever shows up.
Well, that's the whole point, really.
It is the whole
Right.
point, and that's kind of the thing. Is like, maybe for some people that's a good thing, but I've just felt like I've had too many games that I just had the wrong people there, and it just ruined the whole dang thing, and it just kind of I don't know. Like I think that I didn't really do any gaming at North Texas RPG Con because I was only there for like a day and a half, and I missed a lot of it.
Right. I played
but-
in one game. Don't feel bad. I was there to socialize.
Yeah, I mean, I was mostly
too.
socializing.
We haven't played one.
But I feel like if I would have played there, I probably would have been okay, because I feel like the expectations would probably be around the right place. Mostly everybody kind of plays not the same, but a lot of converging interests and things like that in the old school games.
Right.
But whenever I play with people in the modern scene, I mean, you have the groups that are really into the power building and all that kind of stuff. You have groups that really want to do a whole lot of combat. You have groups that want to do like no combat, and they just want to talk the whole time about their characters and how the characters feel. And there's some that really want to focus on plots. And it's like, those are pretty much all three of those are nightmares for me. Like, I really want to have a decent bit of exploration and, all these kinds of things. And I just know that I'm probably going to be disappointed most of the time, but I'm kind of a bad player, I feel like, because there haven't been a whole lot of games I've been a player in that I've really appreciated.
You gotta get in one of my games next year.
Well, I mean, I do better with the old school games. The AD&D second edition game that I was in for over a year, that was a fantastic game, and but it was old school. Whenever it comes to the mini 5th edition games, whenever it comes to the DCC games I played, mostly good. Mostly good. Even though it was culture shock the first time, because the judge's wife was, she was kind of like, you're not supposed to do that. Whenever, we were doing the funnel and I actually spoke in one of my characters' voices. She's like, you're not supposed to do that. And whenever I first started, I was like, really? And then now I think about it, I'm like, yeah, they're all going to croak anyway, so why bother?
Yeah.
But you know what? That's the fun.
True.
I enjoy doing voices, and I try to find a voice that either fits my character or my character will use in a certain situation, because it makes it fun for me and entertaining, usually for my rest of my group. You don't need to go overboard with it, but it can certainly be a fun activity. And again, I don't see myself, I can't see myself, firstly, running a game, all that talking, and for me, I don't sit down when I run a game. I stand, so I can walk the crowd and I can get the attention of people if I'm doing it in a physical space. When you run a game online, I feel I have to be more on point, because you got to keep that attention, because people will get their cell phone out, and as you're checking the box scores of the Islanders game right now, you've got to make sure what's going on. So you just got to focus. But I mean, Aaron, you came into gaming, and virtual tabletops weren't like something new. They were part of the landscape, right?
Right. Yeah. I've had a subscription to Fantasy Grounds for basically almost as long as I started gaming and playing seriously, I would say. Roll20 I've kind of messed around with, but it's kind of funny though, because even though I never canceled my subscription to Fantasy Grounds, I basically don't ever use it. I just use Discord if I'm playing online, and I'll use Owlbear Rodeo if I need to show.
I've heard about it, and I've logged into it, and I've yet to try it. Glenn swears by it.
Yeah, I haven't tried it either, because I have yet to run a online game.
Well, I thought you guys were using it in one of the Long Island games, or were you just using regular dice?
I'm sorry, what?
I
What'd
thought
you
you were
say?
using it when with Jason and his crew. I guess.
No, he's running it. He's using this thing called House Party, which we're going to get rid of anyway. So,
All right. See,
um,
this is all Greek to me, and I'm sure
Mhm.
Aaron is going. Yeah, okay, yeah, I know what that is, and I'm like, house party. That's usually what, you know.
well, they announced last time at the
Noise
end of
complaint.
October
There's a
that
house
they're
party going on.
stopping.
You know,
Yeah,
house
House
party.
Party's going away anyway. So anyway,
Oh,
I've been known
right.
to do. I've been known to do a voice or two in when I'm running games. It's fun. Of course, I just
I
don't do the
mean,
voice.
but
I get up and move around like you do. You know.
right. Well, that's how you keep your players engaged, and it's different tactics. Again, with the VTT, and I had to learn the tactics or the methods for VTTs because it wasn't natural. Because it's not. We didn't have VTTs when I started gaming. We didn't. I mean, we were lucky to have calculators, and let alone like VTTs that could run on my cell phone now. I think Roll20 can now run on your cell phone. Scary ass
Really?
stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, I made that transition to VTTs, and I made a lot of, honest to God, real life friends who I've only met maybe face to face 2 or 3 times, but I made them as friends because we ran Roll20, not with their horrible video and audio because it could never sync, and that was frustrating as all hell. But usually with Hangouts or with Discord running or something, and
Uh-huh.
you can make those connections with the VTT with that extra element that you can never make those connections with a play-by-mail or a play-by-post or a play-by-forum game, or even Fantasy Grounds using the text chat.
Our Monday
So,
game I run once a month in person at the table, but Carlos runs his Monday game on Roll20, and we just run voice. We don't really use the camera, so and it works out. Works out pretty good actually.
I mean, to me, this is just an amazing addition. I've played now with players from Vancouver, Canada, Atlanta, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. I'm not counting conventions. I'm talking about online play, and I am surprised and elated at how well it's worked and how great with the right people you can replicate pretty close the feel of having that face-to-face game. I'm not saying it's perfect. You don't have the beer spilling on the table.
Thank you, man.
You know, you don't have somebody's Cheeto fingers in your rule book, looking something up, and then you know, as you're in that book like 2 weeks later, you're like, I didn't leave a Cheeto fingerprint on it. It had to be fucking Glen, damn Glen. But
Yeah, always blame me.
no, well, it's not, you're married, dude. You're always gonna get blamed. Okay, I know the feeling. I'm married. You take the blame. You
Well,
take the hits. You just,
you always talk about page 75 on the 1EDMG with the charts. It's got to be the most used couple of pages in the book, and I think half of that is Cheeto marks.
My pages were stained just from finger grease.
I
These
bought
are
a
my
used
Cheetos.
set. I bought a used set, and it came that way. So it's like it was. I felt like the books were broken in for me.
Well, now here, then I'm gonna make an observation. And Aaron, do you have any of your gaming books that if you place that book flat at a table, it will open up to the same page each time?
No, not yet. No. Really, I read through physical copies and then I use for reference digital typically. So like my physicals don't get a whole lot of use, honestly. They'll probably age pretty well You know,
Okay.
unless I do something stupid, like, you know, I got that copy of Osric, and it's already got some water stains and like some bunched up pages because I had it just sitting in the wrong spot.
So that's
But
old school. There you go. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I did it. I mean, I guess I poured through the 5e stuff pretty intensely at first, but I really was crazy about builds and stuff when I first started playing, and and then I actually played that way, and I was like, oh, it's not really that satisfying. But I also at that time worked at a job that I would be basically just sitting and reading for 8 hours and just getting paid to sit there. So I may as well just sit there with my physical copy and read it the whole night.
see, I mean,
Rob?
like Glenn says, the DMG always opened up to the combat tables. Always. I mean, that's and until you got like one of the DM screens or the combat shield, that you needed that. That's what I was to go to every day, and none of us thought about photocopying it because who had a photocopy access? My monster manual always opened up to the succubus or succubus, or however you want to pronounce it.
Well, I don't want to know how that got worn out.
I'm just saying, it always opened up to that page, and my players always open up Paladin in Hell because I just love that shot. I thought it was a great piece of art, and and of course in my player's handbook, that piece of art is a lot of black ink, and mine must have been like at the end of a print run, so like the ink ran and then missed like most of like half the page. So my Paladin Hell is very gray, not black, but again. So I mean, my 2e books didn't have those problems because by the time 2e came out, you had had a DM screen, you got it right away, and
I could go on about that.
But I mean, and here since I'm bringing up DM screens now, this is something that I've noticed. Most DM screens these days are half height, so they aren't really. When we had DM screens, you hid behind.
They're vertical. They're landscape. They're not portrait anymore.
Right, which is actually probably the best way if you don't want to put that wall up between you and your players. I couldn't even tell you if there's a DM screen for 5e. So, Aaron, is there? Because you played it.
There is, but I never got it. I never really got it.
There you go. See, I mean, the AD&D 1E GM screen, but after you got past the combat and the saving throws, everything else on that table, all the other tables were basically fillers. Even the weapon tables were fillers. You didn't refer to it often enough to need it on a DM screen, but it wasn't.
Let me show you what I'm using for a DM screen in my once a month game. This is my DM screen. I got this from Vince. It's 1E.
Nice.
That's what I use. It's got all the charts in the back. I did the picture in the middle, and he pulled this from the old D&D cartoon. There's a story in there. He had some guy produce these. He produced one that looks like crap. He said, "Go to hell."
Oh,
this is the only one. He gave it to me because it had my art.
Well, there you go.
But this is what I use for any 1E type games, unless it's Hyperborea. I'm using it for Fantastic Heroes and Witchery right now. And it works.
I used to use my DM screens just to pin the index cards of my copy of all the PCs, because that's how if I had to ask my players, what's your strength or what's your save, the cat's out of the bag. So I always had an updated index card so I can always refer to it. And they always knew something was going down when it's like, index cards are coming off the inside of the DM screen. Eric's going to be pulling some kind of crap.
But anyway, something totally unrelated. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I mean, I was just
you got me thinking again, and that's not a good thing.
Glenn, when either one of us thinks, it can get kind of dangerous, which is probably why most people just
I was thinking about initiative. Is what I was thinking about.
roll for initiative.
Well, I watched the 5e guys. Okay, Roy. Okay, what's your initiative? And they'd write, okay, you're next. You're next. To hell with that. Everybody roll a d6. 6, 5, 4,
Countdown.
3. That's how I do initiative.
Listen, the way Matt Finch did
I'm
initiative,
not responsible for keeping track of when they go.
well, here Matt Finch would do initiative because he'd have like 18 people at the table at North Texas. And our first session with Matt,
I can understand that.
He sat you by dexterity, and high dex to low dex. And your initiative was basically you did initiative for each side, one roll, but for the in the group initiative, it was by dexterity. So I had to take a hit on my dexterity, sit next to my wife, because I was like, it's like, great, you really rolled a bad roll for dexterity, but I'll take a hit. I'll knock myself down to a point just above you. But otherwise, you can't game in a game with your wife and not sit next to your wife. That's bizarre.
It's not right.
No, you get in
trouble.
Not right.
It's not right at all.
You get in trouble for that shite. Oh God. Oh, see now, Aaron's taking a drink of water, and I can't do water tonight. So.
Well, I'm drinking a chocolate shake from Freddy's.
Oh well, if I did that, God knows what my blood sugar would be at. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, well,
yes, Aaron.
It didn't do much good for my voice either.
Yeah, see, Aaron, when you get old, then you hear people talking like, my blood sugar is so high. I had Chinese food for dinner. I ate all the rice. I probably shouldn't have.
But I don't regret it.
No, I don't regret it at all. It's very good food.
I warn you, Aaron, if you ever join our Discord group, it's gotten better, but if me and Eric are there, it turns into either old people's ailments or when I was a cop in Brooklyn.
I was never in Brooklyn. It was the South Bronx.
All right, sorry Bronx.
I worked on the mainland. I did not work in Brooklyn.
I thought you worked in Brooklyn. I don't know why I thought.
No. South Bronx and Harlem, because if you're gonna work in crap, work in the best crap you can work in.
Ask him about it. Ask him about the cattle drive sometime. Anyway,
I will tell Aaron about the cattle drive off air.
Okay.
And if you're wondering what a South Bronx cattle drive would be, just picture. Did you ever watch? If you can find it, HBO, The Hose of Hunt Point. I've actually interacted.
It was a documentary.
It's a documentary. There's actually, I think, more than one. I think it's like 1 and 2. I interacted with a few of them, and they may or may not have been involved in what we affectionately refer to as a cattle drive. So now, when I think of cattle drives outside of that context, I think of Knights of the Dinner Table. No, I think of Knights of the Dinner Table, where they had a whole storyline, and they were doing I guess they were doing the cattle rustlers game or whatever within the comic book, and they were doing
Western,
yeah. By the way, I never picked up the was it the Western game that the folks put out on that side?
By the way, Aaron, have you ever played Boot Hill?
I have not.
Don't.
Okay.
It's probably the most. I mean, there's people who love it, but to me, it's the most frustrating game as far as combat goes. Absolutely frustrating.
All right, here, Aaron. I'll put it this way: Boot Hill is like the diametrically opposed to 5e. Like a 5e, in 5e you can't really die unless you like fail your saving throw a number of times, right? You gotta work at dying. Boot Hill, you step out onto that, dirt patch between two stores. Somebody calls you out. Roll a new character.
Well, to me, if you get in a big battle, you can hit, but you can't hurt anybody unless you roll just right. And
But
that makes
everybody else can
battles
roll
go
just right against you,
forever.
one.
Yikes. So it just
Once
gets
you
rid
get
of the whole abstraction of just you're wearing them down kind of thing.
Yeah.
Barely
It's,
wearing them down. Yeah. I
the
started
best
throwing
part of Boot
dynamite
Hill,
just to make a dent in it.
Boot Hill was good for converting weapons to AD&D 1A. That was about all I did. And then you realize,
Black powder.
yeah, and then like, man, do I really need black powder in my Greyhawk campaign?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Yes. You need black powder, you need steampunk.
I am not a steampunk person. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not too big on it. I'm not too big on steampunk myself.
See, I want my fantasy to look like something that Jim Henson made or Terry Gilliam. That's why.
I could go for that.
I could do that as a one shot. I couldn't do a campaign like that.
When I first saw the Dark Crystal, I saw Ogma's World Machine. I said, I want that in my D&D game.
And did you put it in?
Yes.
And did it work?
I don't remember where or what. They loved it. They destroyed it real good. They blew it up real good.
Well, then that's all that matters. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
If you draw inspiration from anything and it works, then it doesn't really matter where you drew the inspiration from. It works.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I will take the square peg of DCC to the round hole of Swords and Wizardry, and I'll take out my OSR hammer and bang shit in and come out with something that I think is playable. And if my players have fun playing a DCC RPG adventure with Swords and Wizardry rules, and I have no idea that I'm converting that shit on the fly, then I did well. If I was trying to do it the other way around, I don't think it would work. So now that's...
And if they get tired of your game, they can go...
Well, before we wrap this up, I got a question for Aaron, because he's
got
a
foot... if they get tired of your game, they come over to my table and play Gangbusters. So.
Oh, but that's dangerous. I got a question for Aaron, though, because he has a foot in 5e and he has a foot in the OSR. Yes. And the OSR is famous or infamous for not just the rules themselves of Swords and Wizardry and Osric and Labyrinth Lord and Lamentations being called house rules, but people literally take these completed games and at their table will do a page of house rules before launching their game. 5e, I don't know too many people, except for Joe the lawyer, but Joe's a fucking lawyer, so he can figure this stuff out. But I don't know too many people who will house rule 5e. So
they're usually pretty light. People don't seem to like doing too much because obviously if you tinker with a lot of 5e, a lot of it's built into player customization and player facing mechanics and things like that. And so it kind of takes away what a lot of people really have fun with when it comes to 5e. To me, that's why 5e could be a really great system if a lot of players were down for just running PHB only, no feats, no multi-classing, like limit your subclasses and stuff like that, because then you're dealing with a lot less bulk and you're destroying class niche a little bit less.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff.
I have a PDF for after we get done here. I have a PDF for you. No, Mythgarther. My friend Matt took 5e and rewrote it into pretty much exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And,
well, I mean, you don't have to do too much to make it work, and I think it's okay. It's just that it kind of defeats the purpose, of what people expect from it and all that kind of stuff. Usually, the kind of house rules that I often see are, how are we rolling dice? Most people will do the 46 thing. Sometimes I'll see, some other little things, or you'll get a free feat or something like that is one that I see a lot. or maybe they'll introduce a homebrew subclass or homebrew race or something. As far as, you know, what I'm looking at usually, not so much, you know, like for me, whenever I ran my BX game, I was like, well, I don't really like the encumbrance rules as written because it makes no account for strength or, you know, your race. And I don't feel like halfling should be able to carry halfling should be able to carry as much as a big old honking fighter with, you know, 18 strength or whatever. So,
Right.
you know, I'll do a house rule for that. You know, I'll do a house rule for it just doesn't seem to be there. People seem to think more in terms of big game picture, you know, like let's just play a different game entirely, or maybe a hack, but I don't see a whole lot of love for it.
Well, I mean, from what I understand, again, read the rules through once and haven't played them, is that 5e is built from the ground up, that everything is supposed to fit into its own place. And if you start moving things out of place, the whole structure gets a little wonky. It's what you've basically been saying too.
Right.
There's an internal consistency that's expected. And if you change the expectations, things have a tendency to fall to the side. I think that's less of an issue with a lot of the OSR games because, let's be honest, the rules that they were built upon were inconsistent at best. If you've been experiencing 1E, and we joke about weapon speed and armor versus weapon adjustments and all that bullshit, I ask you to go to overbearing rules, unarmed combat, and psionics, and tell me how, in any way, shape, or form, you are playing the same game as the rest of the rules that were laid out. Because, in my opinion, you never were. And those are the first things that people would house rule, but we didn't call it house ruling. Now, 5e is built from the ground up to be consistent in its subsystems, in its ways that the rules interact, in the way that things are determined, the way the classes work. There's no surprises. It might be, oh wow, I didn't see this combination of this feat and this class and this way, and I become a Uber or a Elven Blade Singer in 2e. That stuff, I'm sure, is there, and that's easy enough if you're a DM to say, well, you can't do that. As a house rule, you don't break things. It's always easier, I think, to say you can't do something than to literally totally remove something as a rule or to allow new stuff in. Because, again, 5e, I give a lot of credit. It's a very balanced system. When I'm saying balanced, I mean the rules are internally consistent. And that makes it very hard to properly house rule. You can improperly house rule the shit out of it, I am sure, but it won't result in an experience that 5e players will walk to the table and go, this isn't 5e, and this isn't anything I've ever played, and they'll probably go, they didn't like the experience. Because they come with a certain expectation. You know, I go to an OSR game, my expectation is, all right, yeah, Swords and Wizardry, everybody house rules. What house rules are we going to have today in this game? But if I went to a D&D game, 5e, I would expect something fairly consistent. And I think that's the whole reason why you have the Adventurers League and all that stuff, is the idea that you have to have the consistency and very few circumstances of the need to interpret a rule, because the rules are designed to be black and white. This happens, that happens. We're giving to you. I'm not saying that's a wrong way to play. It's just that the OSR is written in a way that they didn't even make the effort to cover every aspect of play and left a lot of it in the hands of the DMs. I like that, but I can see where people coming from 5e would feel uncomfortable with it.
Right, yeah. Right. You know, I've heard a lot of talking points about how third edition was in some ways an attempt to put some restraints on the DM, and you know, just how much say so they have over what the DM is able to make rulings and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's why I said it's D&D for bureaucrats or pencil pushers, because I think now that you mentioned that, now that I'm thinking about it, that's probably one of the ways they tried to control the GM, because I made this sheet called the D20 Thug Sheet, and it gave space for like 6, goblins or whatever, rank and file, had all the stats on there, all the saves on there, because that's what they were doing. And I looked at that sheet and I say, why do I need all this stuff? Why do I need to know what each goblin's saves are? Why? And that's what I started, that was part of what started me going back to the OSR, because it just seems like they were burying you in paperwork in 3rd edition.
Mm-hmm.
It was ridiculous. You had to write down what if he needs a save? Oh, what if this happens? Well, who cares? Figure it out for yourself.
Well, it goes back to the rulings, not rules. And you needed to make rulings in old school gaming, because I'm going to be honest, and there's going to be people who are going to yell at me for saying this. The rules were written real shittily. Okay, they weren't written well. They weren't written for any kind of.
They were written to play, not to read.
They weren't internally consistent. So, what the first thing that OSR games had to do is at least organize the rules so you can figure stuff out. But 5e is internally consistent, so I can see where you're. Again, I ran a session of Swords Wizardry Light for 5e players at GaryCon a number of years ago. They were expecting a 5e DM for a game, and he was snowed out or snowed in, and I had to go. And it's like, listen, I know the adventure and I can run it. I can't run it for 5e. I can run it for 5e if somebody wants to be a co-DM and handle all the rules. Or I can run it in Swords of Wizardry Light, and you can have characters in 10 minutes and we run from there. No harm, no foul. If you're not comfortable, you can leave. I won't be insulted. Full table, one person left. And when he got up, person walking by goes, "Is that a free seat?" I'm like, "Come on in." And
that was Mount of Doom, wasn't it?
It was, and I did have to deal with some. Well, I don't believe him. I want to roll an intuition check. Okay, well, if you don't believe him, tell me why you don't believe him. No. I want to roll a check. I goes to one of the other 5e players. Like, yeah, this is an old school game. We don't have those checks. What do you mean you don't have those checks?
Do you see it on the?
Yeah, you know, I go. I said, listen, you tell me what you want to accomplish, and the vast majority of the group got into it as it went on. But you know what? It's a scary experience to have everything that you know be taken away from you and be told, listen, there's not, just tell me what you want to do and we'll figure out how it works, as opposed to, I know on page 52, paragraph 4, sentences 2 and 3, it tells me exactly how this works. It can be unnerving. I appreciate that. You know, nobody wants to, I don't call it a safety blanket, but if that's how you come into gaming, that there's a rule for damn near everything, or there's a procedure for it, it's there, and then be told, oh no, we're running stuff with 4 pages. Guess what? I got to make rulings. You have to have faith in that DM, and I think that. And Aaron, you've got your feet in both types of gaming, so you can correct me, and I want Glen's input on this too. But I think that if you're going to be an old school DM, you have to be more skilled. But if you are a 5e DM, you have to be more knowledgeable. So the 5e DM has to know the rules. You have to know them really well. But an old school DM has to be skilled at that ability of DMing to make up for the lack of actual knowledge of rules that don't even exist. So tell me what you think on that, because maybe I talked great sense, or maybe I sound like shit.
No, I understand what you're saying. So it's really interesting. It depends. It greatly depends on your players, because my wife has never really opened a rule book, but at the same time, she can run a hell of a game of 5th edition D&D, and she has before. But a lot of that is the fact that she's played a little bit with me, so she understands how some things work, you know.
Okay.
She gets kind of the basics, and most players kind of get the basics too. But for the most part, she just kind of makes rulings and just runs the game. Whenever there's a player that is really focused on the deep mechanics and things like that, they may be kind of unsatisfied because she doesn't really challenge them on a lot of that stuff. They might say, well, it works this way for my character or whatever. And she's like, okay. But things still kind of work out. And then on me, whenever I, went over to old school stuff, I didn't really have a lot of issue with mechanics. Instead, what I ran into were a lot of players that were, 20 years older than me, that have been around the block quite a few times with some dungeons, and, them just having like a great solution for almost every problem that I come up with, and me having to get more and more clever, in trying to devise dungeons that can really challenge them and all that kind of thing.
You want them to do that.
Absolutely do. But it's just kind of funny. Like, so I think there is some truth to what you're saying. If she had been trying to run games for people that weren't friends, there's a chance they would probably be a little bit less appreciative of her gaming style, considering she doesn't focus on the mechanic stuff that much. And that's just me. There are some more tools for 5e though that can be used, like rather than having to constantly go back to the book, you can get like an app for your phone that's just has all the stat blocks on there, and then you just kind of read off of it, and you can have stuff put together, like encounter builders and things like that just take out a lot of the work, honestly. So yeah, does that answer it?
It does, and actually, again, my experience with 5e players has been at conventions. I even ran Swords and Wizardry for 7 out of 8 players at my table were all from the same home group at TotalCon, and so then we had one stranger got tacked in because he signed up for there's an extra spot at this game. And they all played 5e, and they all came wanting to experience an old school game. Mm-hmm. And they went there with expectations that this wasn't going to be 5e. So they bought in real quickly to the idea of, all right, well, there's no rule for this, so I gotta ask, I gotta try. What if I do this? What if I do that? And for them, it was exhilarating to watch that happen. For that first group, I had one player at the mid-time bathroom break who walked off and didn't come back. But 4 of the players, 2 at the end of that game and 2 the next day, went to the Frog God table to pick up the complete rules. And it wasn't because they were converted. They're never going to play 5e again. No, they found an alternative to 5e. You want to take a break, change your mindset, and that's the whole thing. It's not a zero sum. It isn't like you can't play 5e, or you can't play. Yeah, I mean,
be presumptuous about that. If you play some OSR for a while, and you go back to 5e. That'll change your way of thinking a bit.
Oh yeah,
it'll bleed over.
It'll bleed over because I think it'll allow the people who have often come in from 5e, again, that first group I ran with, have that. Some of them had that mindset of there has to be a role for everything or a skill for everything. I have to have a feat. It's all defined by something. But if you're coming from an experience where you realize not everything is defined based on your character sheet, it opens up your gaming world as a player. It opens up your opportunities for your characters to no longer be confined by what's on the sheet, but then it becomes, what can I try? What can I try to accomplish? maybe breaks you out of that rut. Again, I think that likely, in my opinion, I'd probably I'm not a great player. I'm a better DM than I am a player. I think I'd become a better player if I were to play 5e and see how the mechanics work and all that stuff. I'd be a better player for the OSR because I change some of my perspective and see things slightly differently. I'll never become a 5e DM because I don't have the patience to learn the rules. Just going to put it out there. It's nothing against. It's not a bad system. I have enough trouble taking an OSR game, reading it from page 1 to page 128. I can't do it with 5e. So I'll never learn it well enough to run it effectively. And if I'm going to run a game, I want to be able to be effective and run something that's going to be fun for people, and not have me look up a rule every other action. Like, oh,
Playing in 5e for me is I usually play the most basic of characters. The first one I did, I played a barbarian. The second time was a monk. This time, playing LoJack in the Monday game, he's a spider. Sorry, a spider. A fighter.
Spider?
No, I'm not a spider. A fighter, and he's kind of a little bit of special spider. Gage helped me with that, but he's still a fighter. He's still like one of the weakest people in the group. I mean, we've got shapeshifters in there. Gage is playing a Warforged. We got a couple of magic people, and there's me with weapons, So
Hey.
that's how I get through 5e.
That's how I played a lot of MMOs. I would try to find a character with simpler options so I wouldn't be overwhelmed.
Oh, and get this, since I'm playing what I call a legacy character, because it's one of my LoJack is like I've written comics about him, I've written a novel about him, but one of his things is when we play this in game, he's allergic to wizardly magic. You cast something on him, the first thing he'll do is throw up. Well, actually, I get to make a con roll. If I fail my con roll, he throws up. And but clerical magic works. Otherwise, it's like if he needs to be healed, he's hosed. So I give myself even more. See,
Aaron, I don't know what you expected before tonight, but honest to God, this is a sandbox. It's a hex crawl. Most of our conversation was driven by the comments of our listeners because they would take us and put us on track or take us off track as we would go along. But I will say, you and I don't want this to go to your head, but you and people like you, Ben Barsh of Pacesetter Games, and the rest of that generation, Rachel Marsh, you are the generation that will keep old school gaming alive. It's never going to be relevant, but I'll be honest with you, gaming isn't relevant. It's a diversion. It's not. It is something that we do because we enjoy it and have fun. It doesn't solve social issues. It doesn't change. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't change the world, but can it give you skills in the real world?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If I didn't know what to do when I was a cop, I role played one. It's like, oh, geez, this is a horrible situation. I've got to make a decision. You got to do something.
Role play is the epitome of fake it till you make it.
Yeah, no, damn it.
So is life in a lot of ways.
You are right. And yes, Dave says Aaron is a bridge. And I mean, like I said, there are some old school gamers who are vehemently opposed to 5e. 5e is the work of the devil.
Until I saw that guy's video, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware there was like backlash against OSR.
But the thing is, my opinion on 5e is that I am thrilled that it's there, and I don't think that 5e is not going away. The Wizards of the Coast is not going to kill the sacred cow for the next edition. They're going to make sure 5e is rebooted, but it's still going to be the same rules. They're not going to change it. There's no money in changing it. Look at Paizo. Look at Pathfinder 2. They killed the Golden Goose because they needed to sell new rule books, and they lost.
So now they come out with Pathfinder 2.5.
Yeah, I think that one's too late. But I think Wizards has seen what happens when you reboot. Look at 4e. This all happened. 5e is going back to the roots. 5e is a system that, listen, a lot of old school gamers went to 5e or came back to gaming because of 5e. It certainly scratched a lot of itches that 4e was not going to do. So, interesting times, you know. Now, I could really, I'm going to throw out a question. I want both of you to give me your opinion. It's going to be like the McLaughlin report. You're going to have a minute.
Does that make me Buchanan? Great.
Yes. I'll try to do the right voice for it too. Paizo workers unionized. What does that mean for the gaming community? Aaron, I want to hear your thoughts on the matter.
A bunch of people are about to be disillusioned as they are. Well, I don't know if they can be fired, but maybe put in some very awkward positions and forced to fold, or nothing happens. That's my opinion. I don't know. I don't see Paizo doing conceding to very much. But
correct. Can't believe I'm saying that. I'm supposed to be saying you're wrong, but that actually sounds correct. Glenn, what do you think? What is your thoughts on Paizo's? I don't know, whatever you call them, their non-management staff.
In my opinion, no. All I can think of is if this was WotC, they'd never get away with it. Paizo's a different animal, I guess, and they're smaller too, so they can get away with it. I mean, I could see Hasbro thugs showing up at WotC's offices if this happened.
Well, you're partially right, but you're also wrong. Because
you're wrong. That's how you get it.
Because remember, Wizards of the Coast, what don't they have? They don't have much in the way of developers. It's all freelancers. It's all pushed out to other companies.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Wizards of the Coast is all management, and guess what? Management doesn't unionize. So, good thoughts, but wrong. Oh, yes. God, actually, doing that voice hurts. Holy crap. See, there were people out there making comments. They knew exactly where this was coming from. I used to watch that before working in retail. I used to get to work and be like all psyched up. It's like, I watched the McLaughlin report. I know nothing about what's going on in the world, but I know anybody who did know anything was wrong.
I used to call Save or Die the McLaughlin report of OSR podcasts, and Thaco's Hammer was the Sports Center of podcasts.
Oh, I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Folks.
Oh, you haven't lived until you've heard Vince Florio do his McLaughlin.
Oh, no. I think I've heard it. I think you did it on when we were doing the I want to say the Braintree podcast, but that's not right.
Brainstorm.
Yeah, Glenn, you're wrong.
Anyway,
listen, I had a great time. I'm not going to speak for my.
I had a great time. Hey,
I had a great time.
I had a great time.
Aaron didn't have to tell me I was full of shit, so I'm assuming he had a good time.
No, he left that for me.
Yeah, y'all can't see the gun to my head, but I've survived.
You have survived. And again, folks, if you want to know what a live stream is like that is totally unscripted, this is a live stream that is totally unscripted. I want to thank everybody. Listen, we are setting up. We're in the process of getting this done. We are going to do sponsorships, especially for the live streams. We're working with North Texas to support both the con and a fund to help the old crew, the old creators who are definitely, they don't have the health insurance plans that many of us younger people have coming for us because of the work we did. They don't have pensions or pensions. What the hell is that? So we're working on two funds: one to help the con, one that's going to be there to help the old
The
guard.
pension thing.
So here's the thing, folks. We're going to be offering sponsorships. So if you have a Kickstarter coming up, if you want to get your company up there, we'll do a sponsorship. We'll put together a little blurb. We're working on it. We need to get a PayPal account that goes directly to the convention. I don't want to be a middleman. I just want to make sure the money goes where it needs to go. Huge thanks to Aaron. He has been great. And folks, if you have not seen the episode where Aaron was at North Texas and sat down with Bad Mike and myself, I could not have asked for a kind of more understanding interviewer, because really, when you do an interview, you can be raked over the coals, and it was gentle. It almost felt like he actually liked me. So it was awesome.
That's a hard feat. Yeah.
We happen to really like Aaron. So
yeah.
As always,
thank you very much for coming.
Thank you
my
all.
Pleasure. Thanks for the
Thank
invite.
all the live listeners.
We should do this again.
Definitely.
We should. And I can talk about, maybe by then I'll actually play in a session of 5e. And I won't, but I'll probably be dressed up for yoga and hot pants a lot sooner before I play 5e. But hey, my wife's in the background laughing, hearing that. She's like, hey, I got him in 2 weeks. Folks, we're in the midst of the world of the pandemic. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I really don't care what you do, aside from using your common sense. I always hear, I would never have thrown that fireball into that 10 by 10 room. My character has common sense. He'd know there's a blowback that would kill half the party. You claim that common sense for your character. Use your common sense in real life. Take action to keep yourself, your family, your friends healthy and safe. Yes, Glenn.
And listen to Radio Grognard.
Listen to Radio Grognard.
And I may come up with a GoFundMe to get my butt to North Texas next year.
Oh,
so
I
look for
that.
Too.
Get your butt enlarged or something like that. I was like, what? Get your butt what?
It's, the money.
Aaron the Pedantic has a channel on YouTube.
He does.
Literally, just do a search for Aaron the Pedantic. You will find
it. Not pandemic.
I'm a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker, right? I pronounce the words. I pronounce the words as the words as a New Yorker would pronounce.
The Californian has to tell you.
I don't want to hear nobody from California or Texas telling me how to pronounce. I mispronounce words because that's how New Yorkers pronounce them. I don't speak no
it's pedantic, dude.
You say tomato, I say tomato. No, that would be probably up in Massachusetts or something like that. In any case, Aaron has a channel. Look it up, watch it. He does some really good stuff. And
memorize it.
Well, listen, he has some real insight stuff that you're not going to get that necessarily the same perspective elsewhere. So, good channel to watch, good channel to listen to. So if you're like me, I listen to channels. I don't necessarily watch them. It runs in the background, and I wander off and do puttering around the house. All right, folks. On that, by the way, Zach Laser says you rock. You can't get better than that. All right,
you rock too, Zach.
He's watching. I better get out of here.
Zach's been here since the beginning. God damn it. I feel like I'm being followed. Folks, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. And I'm back tomorrow with Rach. We're going to do a Gamer's Health, which for those that happen to drink alcohol, we'll be doing a taste test on 2 light beers that have less than 3 carbs apiece in a serving, and whatever else pops our boat as we get there. All right, folks. Thank you so much.